Welcome to Midwifery in the Sip. This is Adriana, your host.
And I'm your co-host Francine. Hey y'all.
Hey, hey, Francine, what you sipping on today?
I'm not sipping on anything yet, Adriana, but I do have some evening primrose downstairs in the kitchen brewing, and I'm going to drink on it after we finish recording.
I
What
love that.
about
What are the benefits of it again?
it's hormonal health, honey, cuz listen, I'm 50 years old and I need something that's going to help balance me out. But hormonal health can also mean like aches and pains because I'm not getting the
Yeah,
hot flashes like a lot of people might get, but I do have a few aches and pains. So the evening primrose helps me to relax into that.
I love that. I need to get into that definitely because I have the hot flashes.
Okay. Yeah, the and we're not giving medical advice, y'all. Evening primrose does have some contraindications. It definitely should not be drunk. The tea should not be drunk when you are pregnant. Please don't do that.
Just know that this is not for medical purposes. This is just opinion based. Okay, we are giving our opinions. We give our experiences, but we are not giving medical information.
That's right. So what you sipping on?
Girl, I got me some good old Martinelli sparkling apple juice because yes, I got a sweet tooth, but I don't really want to go and eat a bunch of candy. So yeah, that's today's choice. Is some sparkling apple juice.
Oh, that sounds good. I love apple juice. How's your week been? I know you have a birthday coming up.
I do. It has been busy. Between school because we have tests coming up, like mid-year exams coming up, and doing homework, keeping my house clean, four kids running around. It's chaotic but busy, and it's just a busy time. But I am definitely looking forward to my 39th birthday coming up because it's my last year in these 30s.
Oh, you're a baby child. Happy birthday though. So by the
Thank
time
you.
by the time everybody hears this episode, Adriana will be in 39, year 39.
Yeah,
So
be
yeah,
30
happy birthday.
fine.
Yeah, 30 fine. Happy birthday.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
But girl,
Alrighty.
last weekend I do want to say this because I was gonna girl, I came home from this womb healing retreat and I said, you know what? I wish I could call Adriana right now so we can record an episode because I wanted to talk about it. It was a womb healing retreat. It was just
Mhm.
one day, all day, and we did some wonderful womb exercises and oh my goodness. I did not know what to expect. All I saw was Womb Healing Retreat and I signed up. And we did some self womb massages and I have taken that class before. But
Mhm.
I hadn't taken it with this particular group. And then we did some womb adjustments.
Mhm.
Girl, it was off the chain. People were crying. She did some palpitations on me and I started laughing even though it was hurting. And it was just a beautiful experience. And she did mention after everything that we would probably have some very vivid dreams. And my dreams have been off the chain for a couple of days.
Ooh.
Yeah,
I
it was,
like the sound of that.
yes.
That just sounds like it's just good to release.
Girl, it was
Cause we
so
hold,
good. It was so good.
yeah,
So
we hold so much in our womb we don't realize. That sounds like it would be a perfect release to whatever we are holding in our womb to release that.
yes, yes. And that kind of goes into what we're talking about today, holding mothers, holding children, and the energy that we hold in
Mhm.
our wombs. And I do want to say, I think we should say that this trigger warnings. There might be trigger warnings throughout this episode because we will be talking about maternal and infant death. So definitely take
Mhm.
care of yourself. And if you need to pause and step away from the episode, please do that. Please do whatever you need to do to take care of yourself.
Yes, yes, it is going to be definitely triggering. So some deep breaths, some moments of silence, whatever you need to to be able to take care of you. Please, by all means, take care of it. Take care of you, because Black maternal health and the infant mortality is is strongly rampant across the South, and Mississippi and the broader South continue to face this devastating rates, particularly in Black women and our babies. So that's what this episode addresses: is the crisis directly and compassionately. Again, remember, we are not giving medical advice. We are giving complete opinion, experience, and fact-based information.
Yeah. And the deaths are significantly higher, like you just mentioned, for Black women than they are for white women. Some people, some statistics, I'm not going to say people, but some statistics from the CDC say they can be up to 3 to 4 times higher for Black women in the South than they are for white women. So we're going to be
Yes.
talking about that.
And of course, and based on those numbers most recently, to break down what that means, it could be anywhere between 50.3 deaths per 100,000 live births. So to correlate just what she said, more than three times the rate for white women or any other um, racial in racial disparity in our nation.
Yeah. And then Mississippi has the highest excess of infant mortality. So across
Yes.
the South, we're talking about what, 1,600 excess infant deaths each year, which is, it's just 1,600 more than the national average, but Mississippi has the highest excess infant mortality. So it's a lot of
Yes.
stuff going on that we need to address here.
Yep. Yep. And Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia tend to be here in the South the highest states in those rates when it comes to infant mortality and Black maternal deaths. Unfortunately, um, that's high. That's very significant. Infant mortality here is anywhere between 10 to 11 deaths per thousand live births.
Hmm. That is heavy. And I mean, there could be various reasons. Of course, the CDC is saying that those reasons, well, the CDC is saying that 88% of those deaths are preventable. So that's
Yes.
number one. But they're linking to health reasons, racism, access to health care, access to midwives, ding, 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 access
Mm-hmm.
to um, hospitals that are fully equipped to handle access to mental health care. There are just so many issues going on. And honestly, Adriana, and I know I'm preaching to the choir when I talk to you, and I'm probably preaching to the choir as we talk to the audience, but um the legislators are playing in our faces. Politicians are playing in
Oh
our
yeah.
faces. The government is playing in our faces as all of this is going on, and we are losing all of these women and children.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Facts.
yeah.
You have representatives who are actively saying to the current sitting director of, was he over DHS or HHS? Which one is he over? That man that can't talk. Um,
Yeah.
y'all know which department I'm talking about? Who's telling everybody that Tylenol is the reason for autism?
Oh, yeah, you talking
Uh,
about Kennedy. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, that man that can't talk. Um, he refuses to even acknowledge when pressed recently about the rising rates for Black maternal health, for Black infant mortality rates. He specifically, purposely, and doubled down heavily on not acknowledging that this particular demographic are the ones who are affected. This particular demographic, majority are indigenous to America, which means these are American citizens. And these American citizens are affected. And he's refusing to acknowledge what is going on in that particular demographic solely because of one word. One word, and that's black. And I'm going to continue to say it. Black women and children are the least protected and the most affected by your governmental policies because of what legislation does. And here in the state of Mississippi, just like the current sitting governor has refused money to feed the children here in Mississippi, the demographic here in the poor communities are the most highly affected.
Yeah. And then you say, okay, but why? Why are they mostly affected? Now, I'm just going to go down some reasons that's given by the CDC. We did touch on them a little bit, but
Mm-hmm.
reasons given by the CDC: structural racism and discrimination within healthcare. And that,
Mm-hmm.
to me, when you say that, that can be so arbitrary for somebody who doesn't understand the ins and outs of healthcare and how women are treated, black women specifically, American Indian women are treated, black women, whatever your title may be,
Right.
how you're treated in the healthcare system. Limited access to obstetric care, especially in rural southern counties. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Hospital closures and maternity care deserts. At the same time where midwives are under attack, we're dealing with maternity care deserts. Higher rates of chronic hypertension, diabetes, and cardiovascular disease, poverty and lack of transportation, lower access to continuous prenatal and postpartum care, differences in insurance coverage, including Medicaid eligibility. Y'all, I could read, y'all. Implicit bias affecting. I can read.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to bust out laughing.
Oh my goodness. Implicit bias affecting diagnosis and treatment, and delayed emergency care for pregnancy complications. So, those are some of the reasons that the CDC is given for these Black maternal deaths.
Yes. And there are consistent hospital closures. There are consistent funding that has been pulled from medical facilities here in rural Mississippi. Um, Adding an urgent care in a town that has a population of less than 3,000 people is not sufficient, because you still need some type of community hospital, some kind of community medical care, but an urgent care center is not going to be that. And if this particular town is a 45-minute drive from the nearest hospital, that is detrimental. That is detrimental. If it takes 20 minutes for the ambulance just to get there to her, that also is detrimental. So these are factors that are very contraindicative of something that literally can be fixed and prevent. We can literally make sure that we have birth centers in close to those locations where these moms can actively go and safely have babies if they are not having babies at home.
Yeah.
And just so we highlight, if you are a low risk mom and have been ruled to be able to have a home birth and have a healthy home birth with a midwife, then yes, home birth is healthy for you. But if you know you do have some type of health problem, you do need to see an OBGYN to be cleared to be able to have a healthy birth with a midwife at home.
Adriana, what
Midwives
about? Mhm.
Oh, I was just saying midwives will make sure that you are safe at all times. But I understand that these statistics that we are giving you guys can be scary. But don't let fear overtake common sense.
Yeah. And then I was thinking about what about the women who don't have access to OBGYNs or they could even get clearance?
That's why we need birth centers locally who may have a nurse midwife who does operate in similar capacity as an OBGYN. A nurse midwife here in Mississippi has to be under the advisement of a doctor. But if the nurse midwives had access to be able to open birth centers and can work in collaborative care with the community midwives, they'll be able to look at these country indicators that can say, hey, you have indicators that reflect of hypertension, and home birth may not be your best bet, but you can safely birth here in the birth center. In the event of an emergency, then we will go to the hospital, but you will be safe here.
Yeah. That
We
is,
need In
yes.
Mississippi, we are not allowed to have birth centers.
That's what I
Let's let
want.
that sink
Yes.
in.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Let that sink in. Not allowed to have birth centers where certified nurse midwives can be, and they can be working closely with doctors, and they'll also be working with community midwives. But that's not allowed in Mississippi. I know we talked about maternal deaths, but infant mortality is high as well. And like we said earlier, 1,600 excess infant deaths each year in the South. So it's 1,600 more infant deaths in the South than it is in the rest of the United States. And that is infant mortality, fetal mortality, and preterm birth. Um, yeah. So this is a huge issue, and I know sometimes it just feels like pomp and circumstance when I think about it, but Mississippi did declare a state of emergency.
Yes.
But yeah. But it has to be
Now,
action.
what are they doing? That's the
That's what
question.
I
What
was
are you going to do to
exactly.
help prevent this? Because a lot of these systemic barriers come back to how Southern minority neighborhoods have gaps in care because moms are not able to get early prenatal care efficiently on a consistent basis because of the lack of access to prenatal care, you know, or distance because the community doctor is now 45 minutes away, and that community doctor who has been a general physician for the whole community from babies to old people, now they're no longer practicing in your area. Your closest pediatrician to be able to see if your baby has a low weight and is not able to actively gain weight from either breast milk or formula and take care of or implement a care, and now all of a sudden they're saying, well, your baby died from SIDS. Like it's different factors when it comes to those systemic barriers. And then of course preterm births, because lack of proper nutrition, lack of proper prenatal care, lack of proper postpartum care, lack of access and education, so that these young mothers who have never been to a midwife or an OBGYN, and then they have a baby at 28 weeks, and now they're sitting in NICU, and those babies were malnourished throughout the whole pregnancy because of lack of access. So, what are you all going to do to help ensure that these children are able to make it to childhood? They haven't even made it to infanthood.
Yeah. All
Like,
right.
these are questions that Mississippi needs to answer.
You know what? I may be going on a ledge when I say that this, Adriana, but what else is new? Because this is what I do. I go on the ledge. I go on the ledge. But
And we love that for you. And we love that in general
thank you.
because
Thank you.
we
But
need that.
listen, I think we talked about this before, Adriana. How many midwives are actually in Mississippi today? And not just how many midwives, but let's talk about how many black midwives and how many midwives are in Mississippi today.
There are, if I'm not mistaken again, anywhere between um 15 to 20 midwives, 20 or 21 midwives, somewhere in their neighborhood. Of those midwives that people want to be certified, like most people are looking now for certified midwives currently, even though they are basically community midwives. But of those certified midwives that are in Mississippi in community care, which means these are CPMs, the certified midwives, there are five. I'm sorry, six. There are six. Of those three, of those six, three are black midwives.
All right. So, where am I going with this? I want to say that in 1920, over a little bit over 100 years ago, there were 4 to 5,000 practicing midwives just in Mississippi.
Mm-hmm.
4,000 to 5,000 practicing midwives in the state of Mississippi. And we know through political pushback how these granny midwives were kind of pushed away. But I also want to go on the ledge and say this is genocide.
It
This is
is.
genocide. So, how does the UN, the United Nations, define genocide? It does not define genocide, but it does define genocide by intent. It doesn't define genocide by the number of people that institutions or governments or whatever have killed, but it defines genocide by intent. And so the legal definition, this is from the UN, the United Nations website. The legal definition of genocide comes from the 1948 Convention of the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide. Under Article 2, genocide is acts committed with intent to destroy in whole or in part a national, ethnical, racial, or religious group, such as such. I'm going to read that again. Acts committed with intent to destroy in whole or in part a national, ethnical, racial, or religious group as such. So, I'm just saying this is an issue of genocide. When we talk about all of these women and all of these babies that are dying, and we look at how many midwives are in Mississippi today versus how many midwives were in Mississippi just 100 years ago. I mean, my grandma was born in 1909 in Mississippi. One was born in 1909, the other one was born in 1911. So they had 4,000 to 5,000 midwives in the state of Mississippi when my grandmothers were born. So, yeah.
Yep. Like, let's let that sink in.
Mm-hmm.
Um, one good read that highlights what we are discussing is medical apartheid.
Mm.
That explains a lot of the systemic racism that we see that creates these barriers in medical care in minority communities, not just in the South, it's all over. Minority communities are affected the most when it comes to medical care. Um, Midwifery, as we have stated, is literally like the mother of all obstetrical care. However, the only reason that we have obstetrical care is because there was medical violence against enslaved black women in Alabama.
Mm.
And that, because of that, it is continued throughout. Now, those women that were enslaved at the hands of James Marion Sims and abused and tortured for obstetrical medical care that is being used today, That same process, that same mentality is what is used for systemic barriers for access to care in minority communities, especially in the deep south of America.
Yeah, so definitely recommend researching Dr. Sims and figuring out, I mean, and studying all of that. And Medical Apartheid is a heavy book, but I think it's
It
a
is.
very important read for people who, for everybody. I'm not going to say people who are interested in this. Is everybody should be interested in this because birth is the foundation of life, right? So everybody should be
Mm-hmm.
interested in this. Um, I also, as somebody who cares for women, because what I do is I care for women who have lost children to infant death, stillbirth, and miscarriage. So that's what I do on a regular basis. I
Mm-hmm.
think that what is missing from many of the conversations is that many of these deaths that happen aren't always through labor and delivery. They happen between the 6 week and year after that postpartum, after giving birth. So 6 weeks to a year after giving birth, 38% of deaths happen then. And I think that is huge. That's
Mm-hmm.
huge. And unfortunately, the system really says that 6 week is, that's your postpartum period. That doesn't even make sense when we are losing women during the period of 7 weeks to the 365 days after giving birth.
So
These women,
statistically speaking,
mhm,
postpartum period can last up to 7 years. And you
yeah,
have to be mindful of that because a lot of the times when we're saying 7 years, you have to think about it. Many women are having multiple babies within a seven
hmm,
year time frame. So that
yeah.
means that every baby that she has birthed, that just restarted the clock on postpartum.
Yes, yes. On top of, so she hasn't received care for that first baby, and within 9 months, a year, she has another one, and then maybe 3 years later, she has another one. It just compounds the effects. And if a woman has lost a child to miscarriage, stillbirth, or infant death, that puts her at an even higher risk of dying through in her
Yes.
postpartum period. And that higher risk can be caused because of one, doctors many times miss what led to the stillbirth or infant death or miscarriage. It could be something going on inside of her. And then the mental illnesses that can arise because of the trauma of losing a child. These things are not being taken care of, and we are losing women during this period. It's a very, very, very important period. And Adriana, I'm glad you brought up that 7 years because when you look at traditional Chinese medicine and traditional Maya medicine, it is 5 to 7 years of recovery. Fine.
Yes.
And if a woman has issues before then, if she has hypertension or if she had a mental illness or if she is dealing, and depression is included in that those mental illness categories, if she's dealing with anything, it can last a long, long, long time, a long time. And I had a teacher who stated that it does not matter if a woman has lost a child 5 weeks ago or if she lost a child 50 years ago, she still needs postpartum care. She still needs postpartum care. And I think that is profound. And I know we can't expect insurance companies to pay for a woman to be in postpartum care for 50 years when we can't even expect insurance companies to pay after 6 weeks.
Baby, insurance companies barely pay for you to even have the baby. Because
Exactly.
why are mothers coming out of pocket for thousands of dollars when we have private insurance? You
Mm-hmm.
know, And then if you have Medicaid, you don't get quality care.
Yeah.
So you can have Medicaid that's going to make sure that these doctors are getting paid to have their babies, but the quality of care is also trash.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. It just, again, y'all take care of yourself as you listening to this episode. I know I'm gonna do some work on myself when we finish
Hmm.
with this episode because it can be heavy.
Yes. And
It can.
also this week, July 19th through July 25th, this is also Black Maternal Mental Health Week.
Mm,
So this also plays a huge part in it because mental health can play a huge part in maternal deaths as well, both
hmm.
prenatally and postpartum.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's something that's not talked about, Adriana, when it
Hmm.
comes to PTSD, when it comes to complex post traumatic stress disorder, when it comes
Hmm.
to depression and how depression can lead to suicide rates.
Hmm.
Now, on a spiritual level, just, and I'm just talking about, this is just surface stuff that I'm getting ready to say. But when a woman enters the portal of birth, and again, I want to stress that this is a portal. When she enters the portal of birth and she goes to retrieve that child and brings that child into life, and that child does not make it, or if the child does make it and she's dealing with her own traumas, sometimes she can get stuck in that period of going into that portal to bring that baby forth. And some people
Right.
might not understand that, you know, but sometimes she can get stuck. And we, as birth workers, as midwives, assistant midwives, as assistant birth workers, as doulas, and all of us, we have a duty to pay attention to that and to give
Yes.
that woman care and empathy and understanding. And unfortunately, that care is going to not being reimbursed by insurance. So we're going to have to figure out that ourselves, y'all. We're going to have to figure out
Yes.
a pathway for income because there's no reason for birth workers to be sitting around trying to put coins together or and try to buy food. You know, we should be the wealthiest people in the community, y'all.
We should. We
We should be
should. But
the
I mean, of course,
wealthiest people. Yes.
it's systemic barriers that is doing everything that can possibly be done to keep those communities down.
Yes.
Another book that I was recommended across this week, because there's a mini black bookstore that just opened last month here in Macomb. It's called The Vault Book Bar,
Mm.
and they have, yes, it's lovely. I love it. Um, but on Wednesdays we have silent read nights where, us book girlies get to go and sit at the book bar and have a silent read. Of course, there's a key. You get to drink wine or coffee or whiskey, whatever
Mm.
is your choice. Yes, but it's BYOB unless you are a member. And one of the ladies brought a book that was called Hard is Not the Same Thing as Bad.
Mm.
And that is a good book for adjusting mental health. But of course, in postpartum, you're going through it. But something to at least help you try to mitigate and get through that. If you are going through postpartum depression, if you are having very serious bouts of postpartum anxiety or postpartum rage, this book would definitely is one of those books that can definitely help you shift that mental space and realign yourself, right? And that's the problem that we're having here in Mississippi and across the South when it comes to Black maternal mental health. Postpartum care in that time frame from those 6 weeks to even up to those 7 years, they are not getting the postpartum care that they need. Going to an OBGYN, go and letting them check your cervix, make sure your uterus is intact, checking your pelvic floor. Most of the time, pelvic floor, unless you ask for it, pelvic floor therapy is not recommended. Most of the
Mm-hmm.
time, when it comes to a therapist, unless you say, hey, I'm not good mentally and I need a therapist, they're not going to tell you. They don't sit down and say, okay, let's have a conversation. Let's review and talk about what questions that you have. Tell me what concerns you have going on with you. A lot of the OBGYNs are not actively doing that. It's more of, oh, your lady bits are good. You can have sex with your husband now or with your partner now.
And contraceptives. And I'm
Yeah.
not saying
Well,
anything against contraceptives, but they push that. That's the first thing they push.
that's the first thing they push in the black community. If a
Mm,
black woman has her first baby, the first thing they're going to say while she is pregnant is, what birth control are you thinking about using after you have this baby?
yes.
And it will be her first baby.
Adriana is so interesting because my first child I did have him in the hospital, but when I had my home, and that was the first thing they asked when he came out, what kind of contraceptive? But when my daughter came out during my home birth, she was like, okay, when are we working on the next one?
Right. Like, exactly.
Yeah, so um yeah, this, and I just looked it up because if you are dealing with postpartum depression or anxiety, you may not find the time to sit down and read the book. But I did find this book that Adriana just recommended. Hard is not the same thing as bad. It's also on Audible, on
Mm-hmm.
audio, so you can listen to the book, and just listen to the book, put on your headphones, and this can be
Clean
a
your
way.
house.
So yes, breastfeed your
Go
babe.
for a ride. Yeah, go for a
Yeah,
ride.
something
Go
that you
get
can.
some ice cream.
Yeah, yeah, and some soup or something, or even when you're taking
Right.
your baby out for a walk, you can listen to this in your headphones. Hard is not the same
Mm-hmm.
thing as bad. It's the same book, right? Is it by
Yeah.
Abby Halberstadt? Something like that. I don't know.
Uh,
Is that a German
let
last
me.
name? Halberstadt.
It is, yeah, Halberstadt. Yeah,
Okay, but yeah, it's on audio,
and
so
she's
check
also
it out.
the author of M is for Mama.
Okay, yeah, it just, and also community. Like I
Mm-hmm.
know, postpartum period, pregnancy period, motherhood period, womanhood, wifehood, all of these things can be very isolating, but I think it's important to find community if possible. Find somebody that you can relate to if possible,
Mm-hmm.
and don't hold it in, because also there's a stigma with mental illness. There's a stigma with um, postpartum depression, that people don't want to share it with doctors. People don't want to share it with mental health professionals because we many of us still have that stigma. Oh, if I say something, they're going to take my baby. So I can't
Yeah,
say anything because they're going to take my baby. So,
and you know what? Now that you say that, because that actually just recently happened to one of my clients. One of my doula clients went to the doctor because her baby had a UTI, and it became chaotic from there. But long story short, she mentioning that the mother-in-law was in the room with them. They said something that the white doctor, female doctor, overheard, and it became very chaotic to a point where her newborn twins were removed, as well as her toddler,
oh my goodness. At the hospital?
at the hospital. And it was a very chaotic, I'm not going to go into full details of it,
Of course.
but it was a very chaotic run for her, because she genuinely has been, of course, distraught about what's going on, and rightfully so. All because she's potty training her toddler, which is common. Please know when you are potting training toddlers, if there is an issue of fever, they normally may have a UTI because they are learning to use the bathroom. And then, of course, that's where it comes into proper hygiene.
Mm-hmm.
So, we do need to make sure that we all have that understanding as moms or new moms, that if your toddler gets a fever and it's all while you're potty training, it's likely because you're potty training.
And just imagine the trauma that that woman was experiencing. She just gave birth, and now the babies are taken away. Like, that's traumatic in of itself.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, it's so traumatic. And that woman she's going to need extensive postpartum care as well. Extensive postpartum care when the babies are taken away. You know, you mentioned contraception, and how it's pushed to Black women, even married Black women, after they have children. You just reminded me of this episode of Call the Midwife. Now, I got some issues with this show. But anyway, there was an episode of Call the Midwife that I think I just watched last week. And this was a impoverished woman, a white woman in England, and she had, I want to say, 4 or 5 children, very poor. I think her husband had passed away or he left or something. And her caseworker, because she was on government assistance, her caseworker, the first thing that they wanted to push was contraception. And the midwife snapped, like, how dare you? Just because she's poor or just because she is dependent on the state, you're going to push contraception. And she snapped on her. And I'm like, that's interesting because this takes place in the 60s, but now it's such a quote unquote normal thing for doctors to recommend as soon as a mother gives birth that we don't even think about it, unfortunately. And we don't think about what that implies, or the mentality that that doctor may have that is trying to push this toward a woman who just gave birth. Now, again, I'm not going to say I'm anti contraception. I'm not going to say that. But I'm just saying the mentality that it takes to push that. As soon as a woman pushes a baby out, or as soon while she's pregnant, you're going to tell her, hey, we don't want any more of these. Because to me, that's the message that's being sent. That's the message that's being sent. And so that can also add to the trauma in her mind. It can also lead to a more traumatic experience giving birth. And it could be a traumatic experience that she doesn't even remember, or she doesn't even put much emphasis on a doctor telling her that and how that was traumatizing. So
Exactly. and
yeah.
and a lot of the times when these mothers have those moments and suicidal ideation does pop in, these are preventable moments where all they need is community. They need community. They need mental health help. They need deep postpartum care. They need, sometimes medications are needed. Even like with my current client, she needs community heavily. Like, she genuinely needs heavily community.
Yeah. Yeah, I've dealt with clients like that as well, coming in and they don't have anybody. They may have their partner. Most of them do have a partner, but outside of that, they don't have a sisterhood. They don't have the mom. They don't have the grandmother. They don't have a community. They just don't have anybody. So, I mean, as birth workers, we are that person many times. But like I said, unfortunately, the birth workers aren't going to be compensated from the government for that time that we give. And I'm not saying that that's what we go into it for, but I am saying we have lives to live.
Birth workers give women the right of advocacy. Birth
Yeah.
workers give women the voice that they need to speak up for autonomy. Birth workers give women that support that they need for emotional stability. Birth workers are and birth workers are not just doulas. It could, if you have a grand relationship with your mother and your mother is going to speak up for you, she too can be your doula. Your mother can be your best support system, your best support person. If it's your grandmother, if it's your auntie, if it's your cousin, if it's your best friend. What people don't realize that we need when it comes to maternal health, when it comes to infant health, is that women need community. Isolation is not what women need, especially during birth and postpartum. Women need community, not isolation. Women thrive in community, and isolating women impacts mental health. And when mental health is impacted, then you have bouts of depression, anxiety, instability, rage. All of these come together when it comes to that. And these are preventable moments. When you know that a mother in your family has had a baby, we need to come together in that family and be her community. Even if she says, no, I think I got it, still go over there and wash that girl's dishes. Still
Yeah.
go over there and help her fold some clothes. Give her some company because it is psychologically proven that women thrive in community.
Yeah. Yeah, that is very, very true. I know, like, so if you do have a friend who just gave birth or make a meal, many
Mm-hmm.
of us, I do make meals for my clients, especially when they just gave birth. They get cacao and they get a nice warm meal. They need that. They need that kind of support. So we have to start thinking in that direction, even if you're not a birth worker. But if you are a friend or you love somebody who just gave birth, you are a part of suicide prevention. You are a part of hypertension. You are a part of all these preventable preventions. So definitely keep that in mind. This takes
And the
community
church.
effort and the church and the
Church.
mosque
Because
and
why
wherever you
don't I
go.
see the church coming to these women's homes and starting meal trains?
Mm,
Why isn't the church hosting these baby showers? The church is supposed to protect the mothers and the babies, yeah? So
yeah,
why are you all not? You're asking for the mothers and the babies to come to the church, but when you know that there is a young mother in your church or a mother to be in your church, why are we not coming together as a community? Because that too is preventative.
yes, 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 it is. And then you might not be complaining about your church numbers going down because now you have people who see that you care
Exactly.
about the community. Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
if you're actively caring about the community and not the financial impact of it, then maybe you will see that if you are community based, you are blessed in that way too. But if you're not getting out in the community, if you say, oh, we're going to have a fundraiser or we're going to have a community event and you're just passing out groceries and you're doing it once a year, that's not for the community. That is for the church pastor's ego.
Yeah.
And that's something I am willing to stand 10 toes down. And I know some of my church folk gonna come at me. I don't care. I'm saying it. I'm going to stand on it, and I will repeat it. If you are for the community, stand up and protect these women, because Black women in your communities are dying because they are isolated when they are having medical motions or events, and no one knows about it, and then someone finds out about it later, and then you want to say, oh, I'm gonna play for sister such and such. You should have been there to be able to support sister such and such.
Mm. You know what, Adriana, you just put something on my head. Like when we talk about the granny midwives from 100 years ago, they was in that church, honey. So
They were in that church.
they knew the
The
women that were having children, that just had children, that needed support. That they were
And
a
they went over
huge
there and
part of the
fed them
church.
women too.
That's right. That's right. I think that churches need to be brought into this conversation of why don't we have birth centers? Because why can't, churches advocate for them having birth centers? Why can't churches say, okay, we're going to start training midwives like we did back in the day? I don't know. That church would That's going to be a revolutionary church, but hey, somebody listen to what we're saying here. Yeah.
Yep. Because they knew who all was what were needing support. They went and prayed over the sick and the elderly. They went and prayed over the babies. They went and prayed over the new mothers. If the new mother had to go to the hospital and have a surgery, they went to the hospital and they prayed over her. Like, where are those pastors at now?
Yeah.
While y'all trying to get your Mercedes and have mega churches and be all on the Instagrams and the TikToks and the big screens and stuff, why are you not in your community? You want to get out here and say, "Oh, we're going to boycott, boycott, boycott," but then you probably up in Target touching blankets and stuff.
Yeah. You know, I ain't going to even talk about my issue with the Target boycott, but.
All I'm saying,
But I feel
all
you.
I'm saying,
I
all I'm
feel you.
saying is, don't say you sit up in here and you preach this, but you actions speak louder than words. And
Yeah.
them people are watching what you're doing in your own community, and they are using your actions against your community.
You know what? And I also think the church can play another big part in this. We're talking about some of the key factors of maternal death could be cardiovascular disease and
Mm-hmm.
hypertension. I think the church
Mm-hmm.
should be a center of that and say, hey, well, let's open up a healthcare center. Let's open up a gym. Let's clean a park so we can go walking. Or
Let's have a
let's
community garden.
Yes, or let's provide. And I'm sorry, black churches, but y'all are the center of mental health traditionally in the community. Let's really care about these women's mental health. And if you
And
got to
that's
do it
what
through
gets
prayer,
me.
do that.
Yes, and that's what gets me, because the church was implemental when it came to the civil rights movement. Now we have a current civil problem that's in your own backyard, and you can't even sit here and make sure that these mothers are not dying, that these babies are not dying, that these people are protected. You are not doing your due diligence. I'm calling them out on it. I stand where I stand. You cannot change my mind, because as a doula, as a student midwife, I can honestly sit here and say that I have been to enough clients' homes, and both black and white, and I'm looking at who's doing what and who ain't, and I'm calling you out.
Mm. Yeah, don't have us call y'all out like by name. So y'all get it together before that happens, y'all.
And then you got these stressed out new mothers who already are hypertensive, and you stress them out and say, "Oh, baby, you need to get back in church." Okay, yeah, she got to get back in church, but what is the church going to do for her?
Exactly. She's struggling to pay bills while she got this newborn baby. And she can't
Um,
always contribute to your building fund.
and then you put everything off on the mother. Where his daddy's at?
Yeah,
He's just as responsible too. Give him
yeah,
a job. If you see he's not working and he's struggling, he also is having a mental health crisis. Help him too, because helping him helps her, helps your members, helps your community. Like, traditionally in our community, it was literally when the babies were born, the midwives, the doulas, and the church came in and took care of these folks.
yes.
You want to stop maternal health, you want to contribute, let me rephrase that, if you want to contribute to lowering these rates that are continuously rising for black mothers dying, for black babies dying, you all as the community and as the church need to come behind the community midwives and behind the community doulas, behind the community lactation consultant and specialists, and make sure that we are all coming together for the betterment of these new moms. If you see these new moms are having health issues, if you notice that she's a little more swollen than she's supposed to, and you know those signs of what could possibly be preeclampsia, and she's passing it off as something that is not, and you can literally reach out and say, "Hey, I know you're a midwife," or, "Hey, I think you told me that such and such is your client," or "Such and such told me that she's your client. Can you go check on her?"
Mm-hmm.
That's how we can prevent these mamas from dying.
Yeah.
Because a lot of these deaths are preventable. And in the hospitals, them people don't, them people sit there and they literally already have a medical bias. And our folks that's in those hospitals that are complicit with the medical bias that you see on a regular, consistent basis are conditioned in that style. They are not going to speak up for them. But if you know for a fact that those mothers are going to face some type of medical bias and systemic racism, then you need to make sure that you are also educated enough to say, hey, I'm going to make sure sister such and such has a safe delivery. Because everything that they are facing in those hospital settings is preventable.
Yeah.
Every now and then you will see where there's an instance of uterine atony that cannot be stopped. But a lot of times leading up to uterine atony is because the mother is exhausted and her body is exhausted.
Yeah. When we talk about birth issues being systematic, I think you bringing up a great point because the church, the community, they are a part of that system. They
Mm-hmm.
are a part of that system. And in order for this to be corrected, we're going to have to bring the community back and bring the churches back and bring the other aspects of community back because this is systematic. We can't just say, well, the hospitals aren't doing this, the hospitals aren't doing that. This is all of us. This
Mm-hmm.
is all of us. So,
We all play a role.
all of us do.
We all play a role.
Well,
When it comes to the Black community, it is all our responsibility.
all our responsibility. So, again, if you have a woman in your life who is giving birth or she has already given birth, please check on her. Please see what you can do. It can be a neighbor, you might take over a meal, anything. Have a conversation with her so that she doesn't feel isolated. If something looks off, alert a midwife if you can, if you're in that community setting and you're able to do that. And Adriana, you brought up something in my after I gave birth. Sometimes after you give birth, a woman could be out of it. First of all, I had postpartum depression, so I was disconnected, very disconnected. But my mom, since she was a nurse, and she came over, she looked at me and she was like, wait a minute, you swollen. Like, so she was able to just point out those things. So you can be that second eye because she might not be able to recognize what's going on with her, especially if she's dealing with postpartum depression or she's just recovering from giving birth. She might not be able to recognize all of those, and her spouse, her partner, they might not be able to recognize it either because they're so in the thick of things with the newborn.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
And historically, I mean, when you look at all of that, though, you genuinely don't realize, like, we have to be on par making sure that these mothers are safe.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we just have to.
Yeah. Yeah, we definitely have to. Well, Adriana, do you have any closing remarks?
Just come back into the community, guys. It's everybody is in a hustle form, and even y'all are taking that into the church. You're taking that amongst each other. And what I would highly recommend is that we come together in order to protect Black women's health, Black infant and babies' health. We as a community need to be able to speak up for it. We're not irate enough.
Mm,
We're not irate enough. We're not angry enough. And you're not going to be angry enough. If you're not going to be angry enough right now, you can't wait until there's only 20 Black people left here because they're killing everybody.
mm,
You need to be angry enough now. You need to protect your women now. You need to protect those babies now. And I'm not talking to just the men. I mean, because the men, they need protection too. I'm talking right now about Black maternal mortality and morbidity, Black infant mortality and morbidity, and we need to be able to speak up. And we need to make sure that we have people on our teams that's going to educate us and help us advocate for our autonomy and our rights and everything, because a lot of the things that happens in our community are preventable, but because of systemic barriers and systemic racism, we just kind of just want to hold our head down. Pick your head up and fight, baby.
Yeah. Pick your head up and fight. Girl, that might be the title of this episode. Because you went in, child. I was like,
Listen, like, because like you said something earlier, and I don't even what triggered it, but I was sitting here thinking about how the black church, and I was like, hold up, let me call y'all out. And I already know the couple that married me and my husband, the wife is gonna be pissed if she hears this episode, and that's
oh,
fine.
send it to her. Send it to her.
That's completely fine, because I said what I said. You know, y'all ain't doing enough to protect these mothers and babies, and your own classmates, along with some of mine, have died because of the black maternal mortality health crisis here.
Mm, yeah. She might need a wake up call. If you don't send it to her, you can send. I'll send me her information. I'll send it to her. I'll send it to her incognito. And I'll title it "A Gift for the Church." Yeah.
Because I mean, I stand on it. That's one thing about me. I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna stand on it. And a lot of folks, they gonna feel the type of way. But look, we gonna call out the truth.
Yeah, we are gonna call it out. So, dang, Adriana, is another great episode. Thank you for listening to Midwifery and the Sip podcast, y'all. If you have a birth story, if you gave birth in Mississippi and you want to share that story, listen, the good, the bad, the ugly, the glorious, all of it. You can send us an email to midwifery and the sip podcast at gmail.com, and we will reach out to you after you send us the information. If you want to, highlight your story on the show.
Yeah. And also remember to follow us on the TikTok and Instagram, as well as our Facebook page, Midwifery and the Sip Podcast.
Yes, please do. All right, y'all. Hachi peace, key. Talk to y'all later.
Peace.